Hey y'all, I'm Morgan and thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Or welcome to those of you who are new and thank you for clicking on my video. If you like bookish reviews, general bookish content, bookish unboxings, any of that stuff, I do that here and I would love if you would keep coming back and maybe hit that subscribe button. Today we are going to be talking about the new book, The Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro. And this one was a doozy. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around how I feel about it. Okay, so for this review, I'm going to do a little bit different and put my rating here at the beginning for those of you who don't want to see the spoilers, which will start at this little time stamp here that I'm going to put. And if you don't want to have to try to watch through the spoilers to see the rating, then I'll start putting them at the beginning. I think that might work better. As I said, though, I'm still kind of trying to wrap my brain finally around how I feel about this book. But from thinking about it last night and this morning at the gym, I think I've settled on 4 stars. So also different is all my sticky notes. I cannot get behind annotating, like where you write and doodle in your books. It just hurts my heart a little bit to see the books like that. But sticky notes that are only there for like a day or two, and I take them back out, and I know it's not really going to damage the book. So that's why I did this. But in all of these sticky notes are pretty much where I had an issue with something that was happening at the story. None of them are good sticky notes. The story itself was a good, complicated compilation of ideas, though. Like, if you've seen anybody talk about it or vaguely heard it mentioned, you will hear that they're saying that this is like X-Men and Umbrella Academy. And I would go even further to how it has a Doctor Who reference and a Stranger Things feel. Yeah, so you get a lot of pop culture things could reference in this book. Ordinary Monsters follows mostly a cast of orphans with special abilities, thus, the other references. Their abilities in this book, though, are called talents, and each of them has a different kind of ability, at least all the ones that we see do. I say mostly follows them because we also get several adult perspectives as well throughout the book, one of them being a rather mainish character as well. Though our orphans are the center of everything that's going on here. This book, though, takes place in the late 1800s, Victorian England mostly, and I've heard it described as kind of a gothic by some people. I don't feel it's quite a gothic feel. I think it's got definitely more of an industrialized feel. Like, this is dark in a lot of ways. It's dark in a sense of grimness, and it's dark in the sense of it's yucky, it's dusty, grime everywhere. The details of the city are definitely explained to you to where you can visualize these places that the characters are ending up. Our main characters are trying to find a sense of home, kind of, because as I said, they're all orphans somehow. Every single kid with a talent seems to be an orphan. But one of the things that I really liked about the book, though, is the sense of found family and the bond that the kids form, and that they form with one or two of the adults. Like, it is really the family is who you make it. It doesn't have to be who you're supposed to be with. It's who you choose to be with. And I like that aspect took place through the book. The book takes place in a lot of locations, though, as in the description it says that the boys have these mysterious gifts and they're being hunted and they're on the run from a man made of smoke, who is supposed to be our main villain of this story. After the first part, though, we are introduced to our other 2 orphanish characters, which would be Komiko and Ribs, which her name may or may not have come out right because it is Japanese and I'm not entirely certain that I did pronounce it right. In part 2, though, you were kind of taken back a few years And that's when you're introduced to them, is a few years before the events that you were just in part 1. And it's a little different there with what's happening with them. It's not exactly as high stakes. And yeah, it's just a little bit of a different feel there. Pretty much every part in the book had at least 1 or 2 instances where it did it, and that would be where the narrator kind of spoke in a different tense, like he spoke as in someone looking back but at events that didn't happen yet to those characters, and it had a sense of taking you out of what was happening then. And in one case it even directly didn't add up to what would happen later in the book. Like there was a complete continuity contradiction error there. I liked the characters, kind of. I liked that even though they were all so traumatized by the world, they had all had these super sad events happen to them, and like pretty much horrible lives up until the point where people who knew what the talent was able to find them. Like they had all had the worst of the worst kind of life, except Marlowe. Marlowe grew up with someone who loved him, knowing what he could do, and she still loved him and took care of him and did not want to be parted with him. And the book really made you feel bad for these kids. It made me hurt, really, thinking about how these kids' lives were. And even after all of this trauma and all of the things that had happened to them, when they were together at the school place, and they could still have instances where they were childish, where they were kids. Some of them were teenagers, but where they were still kids. And then they would have moments also where they were very serious and more wise or cynical than what their short years should have led them to. And I think that's a very genuine look at the mentality and the state of what kids that have gone through these things are through. So I think he did a very good job of portraying that. I'm not sure what to say about the pacing of the book. It's not that it was slow, but I don't think it was super fast either. There, because of the details, and because of several things happening a lot, or because of several things that were happening kind of at the same time. I don't know. It was 658 pages, I think, with the epilogue. So it was it took me a minute to read this book and be able to get through it. So I'm not sure how to consider the pacing right now. The perspectives you see through this book, I think, is also a very different thing. Like, I've read a lot of ensemble pieces where you see through lots of different people's eyes. But this book takes it a step further, as in you will see through almost everybody's eyes. So you see the plot and what is happening through so many different perspectives. Like, you're looking at it almost in a whole circle of what's happening. And you would think that that would give away almost everything, and yet it still can leave you confused. Like, you're seeing through who's supposed to be the bad guy, and of course, they think they're doing it for a greater purpose. But then they'll hear the events as they've happened from his perspective versus somebody else's perspective. And yeah, it's not that he's just thinking he's not that bad. His reasoning behind it even isn't adding up sometimes with his actions. And you no longer know who's on what side and what's happening. Meh. That part was a little confusing. Like, the first action thing in the books, a lot of the first part I spent waiting for something to happen, because everything that you were seeing, you were kind of being told, well, this has happened and this has happened, and we're here because this has happened. So you weren't really seeing anything happen. You were being introduced, but everything was kind of being said as it's already happened. So the first action thing, well, okay, the first one was freaky. I'm gonna go with the first one was freaky. And then the big action thing, though, with the train, that one is really where it broke up and you saw from lots and lots of perspectives. That was, I think, the first time that we had seen the same event occurring from everybody's pretty much just perspective that was there. And oh my gosh, yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna go with the end of the book was alright. It definitely sets us up for the next ones in the series. And yeah, I think that it did pretty good to want to continue the adventure. So, though a little bit also it set it up like, even though this is a huge chunk of the book, it was only a prelude a little bit to what's to come. Because there's going to be a lot of hurdles and uncovering and sleuthing and stuff in the next one for sure. Possibly more sleuthing and uncovering in the next one than even, you know, what happened here. Alright then, spoiler time, because we should get into the crazies, I suppose. So, they say that all the talenty things are manipulations of dead things, dead skin cells of your own body to push them back together and heal. Yeah, I don't know how dead regenerates to heal, whatever. The dust, that makes sense. It's dead skin cells in your air or whatever. You're manipulating that. Doesn't make sense for the invisible girl. Exactly. How is she changing? Yeah, nope. And Marlowe's ability doesn't seem to fall into that at all, which makes more sense when they explain, well, he's not like the rest. He is something different, born different. Yeah, okay, so we set these rules or whatever down, and then we don't work within them. We say he's an exception. I really feel that the invisible girl also doesn't work. How is she manipulating enough dead skin cells in her body to make herself invisible? The way that I feel that this book touched Stranger Things a little bit is in the fact that there is an aura scene, which is the portal into another realm, which is the realm of the dead. And it sounds a lot like the Upside Down. You know, where everything's just a little bit different, haunted by spirits, and you go through a yucky, gooey portal to get to it. And pretty much though, that the guardian of this portal, which at first they say there's only one, and then it goes back and says that there's an inactive one in Paris, and he's the one that helps find the talents, because he sees everything, and whenever somebody uses their abilities, he can kind of feel it, and he directs the people at the Carindale Institute, which is the school kind of for talents, that's the X-Men connections, to be able to go find them and save the kids. They're saved to bring to this school, but everything at the school, of course, is not what it seems. Seeing from so very many perspectives, though, is still, you put the pieces together weirdly because they're still not putting the pieces together. I don't understand how Mrs. Harrogate still believed in Dr. What is his name? Mrs. Harrogate worked for Dr. Burgess for forever, and yet somehow she couldn't tell his nature. She believed him even when she was hearing things, which is another thing that I didn't get. How is it that all of our main characters found somebody in the book, some outside person who had a contact with the school at one point, of course? How did these people who were side characters, how would they have gotten secret information? Like the nursemaid, she heard stories. Okay, of course, servants talk. I can understand that, but some of the details she had are odd. I'm sorry, they were just odd. It didn't put together as how people would have known this or talked about this. Part of it, I think, was a cover story that Dr. Benghurst, I say his name, put out, I guess, when the baby was found. And the person the kids meet later on, she knew definite secrets that the doctor wouldn't have put out there. The doctor wouldn't have wanted anybody to know. Like, she might have known some things about why he was doing something, but one of the things she knew, how did she know it? I mean, did she just, put the pieces together. I don't get how she put the pieces together. You wouldn't have known it except you kept seeing through the doctor's perspective. I don't think she could have put it together to what he was trying to do. She could have put together that he was a little bit heartless. He really didn't care about the children like people thought he did. But still, that one key detail that she told the kids, there is no way. There is no way she could have known that for sure. Or, I don't even get how she could have guessed it, really. Because I feel like if other people had been aware of such information, he wouldn't have gotten as much support as he did up until that point. But it would have taken the children away. I don't know. I might be rambling about this, about the weird things that was wrong. As I said, though, all of the orphans were found and taken to the Carindale Institute by our main adult kind of perspective, Alice Quick, who is a female detective hired by the Institute to track down the Tallents. And this has been going on for generations. Like, they talk about how old the school is and how it was just built in other things. And they kind of touch on how long the Tallents have been around, like when the first Talent happened. And yeah, so you get that they have been studying, kind of researching the Tallents, thus being able to help them control it for a very long time. But even still, it doesn't really tell us that much about them. It tells us that there's 5 different classifications of Tallents. The kids at this school, they get, of course, they're not very trusting type because they have been through so very much, but they feel this somewhat sense of safety because, you know, they're fed, they're clothed, they're able to sleep in nice beds, they're being educated. So I mean, they have this slight sense of safety, but then at the same time they're still kind of weary and not fully trustworthy. And once they get there too, that's when you start to see that this doctor that they've been told about that would take care of them, that, you know, run the institute and care for them, the fact that, you know, he didn't even try to introduce himself to them, that he never spoke to them for weeks on end, you know, they start to get the sense that something isn't all that it was told to them to be. And after delivering the kids to the school, Alice and Mrs. Harrogate go out to hunt our main bad guy and stop him before he can go after Marlowe again. And this is another weird problem that I had, is they were going to kill him for sure. Mrs. Harriet said, we're going to kill him. And yet when they do track him down, they sit calmly and talk? What? That's when you gave away your situation of power. You decided to sit calmly and monologue with the man. Their big weapon, though, that they had acquired is a being not quite from our dimension, but when it's here and not in its fighting stance, it's in the form of a little black kitty, which is adorable. And I love how Alice went from thinking of it as an it and, you know, being weary of it, not even really actually thinking it was the Kiwis, and if I said that right, to pretty much petting it, loving on it, talking to it sweetly, and being like, you know, you're just a cute, adorable thing that helps us out. And I like that. I like that she bonded with it, and I'm wondering if it will come back and agree to keep, you know, helping her. I don't know. That was possibly a very confusing, spoilery time. But this book, it is complicated and a bit confusing and sad. It is. I feel like I need a happy book now, and I don't have a light, fluffy, happy book in my TBR, so I don't know what to do with that. Yeah. I would say overall it's a pretty good book. Wanting to see what he tries to do with the second one, to see if things go a little bit better with our contradictions and our confusing points. Hopefully we're not going to have to see through quite so many circular viewpoints. Doesn't really help you know what's going on. That's my opinion, at least. Especially because it wasn't making anything clearer. Sometimes, you know, you could do that and the whole of the situation would become clearer, but I feel like it was just still murky, and the things that were uncovered in the book were a bunch of crazy, and you don't really know what the truth is. And Ordinary Monsters, I think, is going to be one of those books that kind of divides their readers into, there's going to be so many people who love it, love what happened, the style of the writing, how that worked, more of the meh or the not liking it at all. I think I'm somewhere slightly above the meh. I don't think I'm quite at the meh. I don't know. I did have all of these and I gave it a 4 stars though. I think if you like a grim, dark, eerie kind of feel story, or you like the industrial era fiction, then you might enjoy this. If you like books with kids with abilities, though definitely not a kid's book because it does definitely go into the hardships of being an orphan in that time period. If you stuck around with me while I babbled, thank you so much, as I'm still trying to figure out my feelings on this book, and I want to be able to describe it to you guys in all of its complicatedness and its goodness, its flaws and its weaknesses, and maybe I was able to get that across this time. You can let me know down below if I just completely ruined this Outlook review or confused the crap out of you. If you did enjoy this video though, please consider a thumbs up, and you can check out some of my other review videos or my bookish unboxings or general bookish talks and trying to do vlogs. And if you're liking what you see, consider subscribing. And we're growing this small little community. Right now I'm posting 2 times a week, but as I'll say in a future-ish video, there will be a little bit of a difference in July that I'll explain. I hope you guys though are finding something awesome to read this weekend and going to have a lovely weekend, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.